Get ready for a wildly thrilling ride as Okabe Rintaro continues trying to get Mayuri back and has to suffer unforeseen consequences and dilemmas he could never have thought of. Make sure to subscribe. After Mayuri's sudden death in the subway, Okabe time leaps repeatedly to save her, but despite his efforts, Mayuri dies each time, with or without Moeka and her thugs being involved. In one attempt, Okabe tries to escape Akihabara with Mayuri via taxi, but bomb threats halt the trains, causing traffic jams. While stuck, a thug shoots Mayuri through the taxi window, killing her, so Okabe escapes, desperately returns to the lab, and time leaps again. August 13, 2010, 2:32 p.m., Okabe locks Kurisu and Daru out of the lab and urges them to leave the city. He texts Moeka, claiming they found new information about the time machine. They meet under the train tracks, where Okabe tricks Moeka and takes her gun. Interrogating Moeka at gunpoint, Okabe learns she and the thugs are rounders, tasked with acquiring the IBN 5100. They attack the lab due to the lab members' discoveries about the time machine, and Moeka receives orders from FB. Before Okabe can find out more, he's suddenly knocked out. 7:29 p.m. Okabe wakes, bound in a van near the lab, held by Moeka and her thugs. As they prepare to barge into the lab, Okabe tries to ask for help and escapes, but finds Mayuri already dead in the lab room, so he time leaps again. August 13, 2010, 4:56 p.m. in the lab room with Kurisu and Daru. Frustrated, Okabe tries to break the time leap machine, but Kurisu stops him. After a discussion with Luca, he takes refuge on an overpass where Kurisu finds him. After explaining the situation, Kurisu and Okabe decide to work together to save Mayuri, and she sends him 5 hours back and gives him a phrase to convince her past self he's from the future. August 13, 2010, 1:59 p.m., Okabe finds himself in the lab moments before the time leap machine's completed. He declares they won't use it and later meets Kurisu and convinces her he's from the future. They deduce an unknown cause for Mayuri's death beyond Moeka and the Rounders before Suzuha appears, taking them to the radio building. She reveals the divergence meter, which shows the world line's difference, currently at 0.337187%. Using ropes as illustrations, Suzuha explains world lines and the fact that they need to cross the 1% divergence barrier to save Mayuri. She reveals she's from 2036 and is the time traveler John Titor. I guess now we know why she kept glaring at Kurisu. Suzuha describes her future in 2036, where CERN rules a tyrannical world, killing dissenters. She reveals she was part of the anti-CERN resistance, always on the run, but realized she couldn't defeat CERN in her time and used her father's time machine. Okabe is shocked to learn John Titor is real, but Kurisu is a bit doubtful, so Suzuha explains CERN uses their time machine to manipulate the butterfly effect, with Kurisu's future self, the mother of the time machine, helping them. Okabe becomes a famous resistance fighter, but both he and Kurisu die by 2036. She says she plans to return to 1975 to stop CERN, but her time machine breaks. 2 police officers approach, so Okabe hurriedly distracts them, allowing them to escape. Suzuha explains rain likely caused the time machine to malfunction, so Okabe decides to use the phone wave to go back 48 hours. August 11, 2010, 2:21 p.m. Okabe instructs the lab members to fix the time machine in 48 hours. Daru works on it, seeing that it's similar to the phone wave. Suzuha shares her limited knowledge of her father, so she and Okabe look for clues about her father's pin and meet with Daru, who promises to fix the time machine by the next day. Suzuha thanks Okabe and the others, feeling grateful for the experiences before he receives a call about someone wanting the pin, potentially Suzuha's father, and leaves immediately. Okabe, Suzuha, and Mayuri meet the street vendor, who reveals a man requested a pin like the one Okabe showed. After hearing what the man looks like, they aren't hopeful in finding Suzuha's father until Okabe devises a plan involving the time leap machine. August 11, 2010, 6:35 p.m., Okabe time leaps to catch the man meeting the vendor and sees it's Daru who planned to fake being Suzuha's father with a fake pin. Okabe learns Suzuha's time machine can only go backward, meaning she can't return once she leaves, and sadly promises he'll change the future into a free world. August 13, 2010, 3:07 p.m. Daru fixes the time machine as Okabe and Kurisu arrive with Suzuha's bike, and Mayuri deduces Daru is Suzuha's father, making Suzuha cry with joy, after which the lab members bid goodbye to Suzuha as she leaves for 1975. Later, Mr. Brown delivers a letter from Suzuha revealing she died 10 years ago. She what? The letter explains Suzuha failed her mission due to amnesia caused by incomplete repairs. She asks Okabe not to stop her from leaving during the storm, so he sends a D-mail to grant her wish. Mr. Brown reveals Suzuha died from illness and gives Okabe her divergence meter. He finds Mayuri alive and sleeping. Overjoyed, he inwardly asks Suzuha if Mayuri is now safe. August 14, 2010, 7:37 p.m. Mayuri is alive past her usual death deadline. Okabe, with Daru and Kurisu and Mayuri, wonders if Suzuha's D-mail brought them close to the 1% divergence needed to save Mayuri. As he's thinking about it, Mayuri complains about her pocket watch stopping, hearing which Okabe suddenly remembers her previous deaths. Seconds later, Rounder agents kill her. August 13, 2010, 5:02 p.m. After time leaping, Okabe asks for Kurisu's help jumping from the Alpha Attractor field to a Beta world line by hacking CERN and deleting their data. They need the IBN 5100, which is missing, so Kurisu suggests undoing all time-altering D-mails in reverse order. August 13, 2010, 4:17 p.m. Okabe contacts Ferris, who sent the second-last D-mail and finds her at the UPX building after winning a match. They escape from angry Rye Nutters as he realizes Ferris doesn't remember D-mails. He tells her about May Queen and starts to remember, revealing that her D-mail prevented her father's death. After being beaten by Rye Nutters, they're saved by Ferris's father, and at her apartment, Okabe learns Suzuha gave Ferris's father the IBN 5100, which was sold to pay a ransom. Ferris agrees to undo her D-mail, so Okabe jumps world lines, finding himself in the lab where Ferris, now her May Queen self, appears. Akihabara's weeb culture returns, but the IBN 5100 is still missing, so Okabe wonders where it could be. Doesn't matter, anime fans have returned, and that's all that matters. Okabe meets Luka and tries to jog her memory by revealing she was once male. Luka starts crying, so Okabe explains Mayuri's situation and asks her to revert to being male. Oh boy, Okabe is gonna get cancelled. August 13, 2010, 3:31 p.m. at the lab, Okabe looks troubled, so Kurisu jokes about his mood, and Mayuri scolds him for making Luka cry. Okabe takes Kurisu to the park and explains everything. She believes him when considering the consequences and suggests he undo the D-mail himself, but Okabe doesn't know the page's number. She tells him that Luka has a crush on him as Luka texts Okabe to meet her at the shrine. Luka believes Okabe and asks for a date before sending the D-mail. Okabe agrees and asks Kurisu for advice. Ferris teases him, and back at the lab, Daru offers advice but Okabe dismisses it. Kurisu and Okabe argue about dating plans until morning, so she dresses Okabe in a suit and insists Daru help spy on him. In the date, Okabe awkwardly tries to impress Luka and reveals Luka's partial memories of past world lines before she gives him the pager number and tearfully bids farewell. After undoing the D-mail, Okabe finds male Luka and confirms it worked before getting ready to send the final D-mail.
I say, let's do it!
Moeka stands on a windy roof, looking down and holding her phone, and on August 15, 2010, at 8:03 p.m., Mayuri invites Kurisu to a comic book convention as Okabe tells them about Mayuri's plans, so Kurisu takes him to the roof. Okabe tells her that Mayuri will die eventually, and each undone D-mail delays her death by a day. He explains that he plans to undo Moeka's D-mail next, but needs her phone, so she offers to track Mayuri while Okabe finds Moeka. The next day, Okabe learns Moeka committed suicide, and Kurisu informs him that Mayuri dies again. August 11, 2010, 5:36 p.m., Okabe time leaps and heads to Moeka's apartment, where he finds her obsessively messaging FB. He tries to take her phone and angrily attacks her upon realizing she was the one who started Mayuri's death cycle. He leaves when she doesn't cooperate and calls Kurisu to send a D-mail but remains on the same world line. Okabe returns, confronts Moeka, and learns her D-mail was to steal the IBN 5100. They send another D-mail, but it fails as he realizes Moeka needs FB's orders to believe, and she tells him where she hid the IBN 5100. Okabe sits outside the coin locker room where Moeka said the IBN 5100 is hidden, looking down and holding his phone. August 12, 2010, 12:41 a.m., Okabe searches the lab for a crowbar to force the locker open before Kurisu makes him explain and suggests that undoing all D-mails might be necessary to find the IBN 5100. She mentions the IBN might be in the locker for FB to pick up, so Okabe should wait there to see FB. In the present, Okabe waits while Moeka brings him food. That evening, he updates Kurisu, who almost tells him off but doesn't because of Mayuri. Okabe and Moeka keep waiting and he reads some of FB's texts to Moeka out of boredom, learning her codename is M4 and that FB offers her emotional support. August 13, 2010, 1:25 p.m. Okabe and Moeka spot a man taking the IBN 5100 from the locker and follow him to a train station where another man with a tattoo takes the cart. They follow this man to a train and off it, losing track of the IBN 5100. Okabe time leaps, tracking the IBN through photos, and they eventually see Mr. Brown take it. Okabe and Moeka follow him, discovering Mr. Brown is FB. He reveals that he texted Moeka because that's what she desired before shooting her and himself to protect Nai. Okabe sends a D-mail from Mr. Brown's phone, stopping Moeka from going after the IBN 5100. Okabe finds himself at Moeka's apartment, where Moeka is alive and well. She texts that she won't need the IBN 5100, so he gets it from Luca. He explains the situation to Daru and Kurisu and tells Daru to hack into CERN and delete all the data that flagged them before Kurisu asks about the first D-mail and Okabe realizes undoing it will save Mayuri but kill Kurisu. Not worth it. If best girl dies, we riot. Daru starts preparing, but Okabe stops him and heads to the roof, lying down. Daru leaves and Mayuri arrives, inviting Kurisu to a convention. She finds Okabe on the roof, gives him water and her hat, and prepares to leave, so he decides to join her. At the convention, he realizes Mayuri will die that day as she offers him books and a new mecha show, but he brushes her off. Kurisu fetches a book for Daru and plans to ask her. Okabe calls her and says he plans to save Mayuri with erased D-mails. Kurisu asks for details, but he hangs up. In the evening, Okabe senses Mayuri's oncoming death and in an alley, Mayuri cheers him up. Suddenly, a car appears, so he hurriedly tries to shield her, but she pushes him away, getting hit and dying in his arms. Okabe uses the phone wave, time leaping to when Daru starts hacking, and Kurisu and Daru see him grieving. August 15, 2010, 1:53 p.m. Okabe lies on his back, staring at the sky, so Kurisu worryingly asks him about it, and he admits Kyoma is childish. Kurisu realizes he time-leapt and asks what happened, so he explains everything and she comforts him. Mayuri calls and Kurisu urges Okabe to find her, so he locates Mayuri at her grandmother's grave, where she tells him that she's dreamt of dying in different ways. Okabe reassures her and takes her to get another upa. That night, Kurisu visits Radio Kaikan, finding the room where she was stabbed in another world line. Kurisu lies on the radio building roof where Okabe finds her as it starts to rain, soaking them. Inside, Kurisu's wet clothes expose her body, surprising Okabe. They start arguing and she offers to stitch his torn lab coat, unsure of the thread color due to the darkness. As she sews, Okabe reveals he was worried when Kurisu didn't answer her phone, making her smile. Kurisu teases him and asks if she dies in the building. Shocked, he asks if she remembers her death, so she admits she has some unclear memories and urges Okabe to return to the world line, accepting her fate. Okabe refuses and returns to the lab to time leap again, so Kurisu stops him, insisting the D-mail be erased. Okabe reluctantly agrees and hugs Kurisu before confessing his feelings. They slowly kiss, and Kurisu assures him she won't truly die as long as he remembers her. Get your speakers out, boys, we're heading to the streets. The next day, she leaves for America and Okabe deletes the D-mail, ensuring no one remembers Kurisu, before Daru calls him to the rooftop to prevent World War III. On August 21, 2010 at 5:32 p.m., Okabe, Daru, and Mayuri arrive at the radio building rooftop where Suzuha has landed her time machine. Daru initially mistakes it for a transformable robot and asks Okabe to help prevent World War III by saving Kurisu from dying, thus shifting to a world line known as Stein's Gate. This is probably the most epic title drop in science fiction. Okabe hesitates since he's gotten used to life without time leaping and accepts Kurisu's death. Suzuha insists it's worth the risk as even a slim chance could prevent the war. After getting motivated by Mayuri and Daru, Okabe agrees to go.
Yes, dude, yes!
And learns the time machine can travel both backward and forward in time and has a passenger seat inside it. Suzuha sets the coordinates and they leave surrounded by beads of time. On July 28, 2010 at 11:51 p.m., they arrive. Okabe nearly throws up, so Suzuha breaks a door open with a suppressed pistol, and they decide that Okabe will have to save Kurisu while avoiding his past self. Following his past self, he heads to the 8th floor but runs into past Kurisu and nearly has a mental breakdown. After dropping her envelope, Kurisu heads to Dr. Nakabashi's press conference. Okabe hides, discovering her envelope contains time machine theory papers. Nakabashi, her father, plans to steal her work, so Okabe confronts him and unintentionally stabs Kurisu, realizing that he was her true murderer. Traumatized, he starts screaming as Kurisu dies in his arms. Back on August 21, 2010 at 5:56 p.m., they return with Okabe in shock and covered in blood. Suzuha says they should try again, but he refuses. A news report reveals Nakabashi has fled to Russia with Kurisu's papers, triggering a nuclear arms race and World War III, causing 5.7 billion deaths. Suzuha tells Okabe to view a video file from his future self explaining how to reach Steins Gate by tricking his past self into thinking Kurisu is dead while saving her. Okabe accepts the mission, revives his Hooi Kyoma persona, and gets ready for Operation Scald. Time for climax, boys! Strap in! As everyone gets ready, Suzuha reveals that the time machine can only make one more trip to the past and back. Okabe asks what will happen to her, and she explains that if they succeed, she will return to her own time since she won't be needed in 2010. Okabe cheers her up, saying she'll still be lab member number 008 if they fail. He declares that the operation has started, and he returns to the lab for a glow-stick lightsaber to use its liquid as fake blood. Though others doubt this plan, Okabe insists it's perfect, surprising everyone. Mayuri remembers Kurisu, which Okabe explains could be due to memory shifts across world lines, and accidentally admits that he and Kurisu had feelings for each other. That evening, Suzuha and Okabe prepare for the trip, with Daru again asking about Suzuha's mom, only to be turned down. Arriving on July 28, 2010, Okabe gets the metal upa so Nakabashi's paper will burn in the fire. In the closet, the glow stick fluid is dried up, so Okabe uses his blood when Nakabashi stabs him. He tases Kurisu to save her, making sure the Okabe in the past is fooled. Suzuha helps Okabe back to the time machine, and they realize they may have reached Steins Gate as Suzuha fades away, thanking Okabe and promising to see him when she's born in 2017. In the present, Okabe, recovering, sees Nakabashi's thesis destroyed. He thinks about Kurisu, hoping she's at peace, and as he walks by the science building, he meets Kurisu, who has been searching for him to thank him. Their encounter reawakens Kurisu's memories of other world lines, so Okabe welcomes her back. Welcome. Reaffirming their love, believing that space-time will always find the right path. Unless it's Mayuri's death, I suppose. Okabe is walking on a desert road, thinking his time is up. He talks to himself on the phone, learning that his current situation is the choice of Steins Gate. 2 weeks earlier, Okabe and Mayuri are in the lab when Daru arrives dressed for a Rainet competition in Los Angeles, invited by Ferris. Mayuri gets a text from Kurisu saying she'll visit but only wants Okabe there if necessary. October 14, 2010, 10:24 a.m., the group visits Mr. Brown, Nai, and Moeka. At the airport, Okabe declares that he's a mad scientist, causing him to get arrested. After being released, he meets Kurisu, who jokes about his behavior. In Los Angeles, Ferris wins her tournament. Okabe, Mayuri, and Daru stay at Kurisu's apartment, making themselves at home. Kurisu asks Okabe about other world lines, thinking about their kiss, hearing which Okabe gets flustered and she throws a soda can at him, knocking him out. October 15, 2010, 11:16 a.m., Ferris wins big and Okabe meets Kurisu working as a waitress. They argue, with Okabe reassuring her about memories from other world lines. Later, he thinks he sees Suzuha, but realizes it's actually Daru's future wife. Stranded with no memory, he walks back, collapsing in exhaustion, so Kurisu finds him and admits she's not sure about their relationship because the time they spent together is unclear to her. Okabe says he remembers everything because he was reading Steiner and declares he will love her in every timeline. When he asks for an answer, she thinks about it and slowly approaches him before asking him to close his eyes. If you enjoyed Okabe and his friend's journey, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.